Hello and welcome to our fifth session in this object mode second chapter, and in this session we are going to build a workable model and we are going to animate it. So we are going to start from where we left in our fourth session. So if you already have worked on it, you can open that file and start working on it, or in the description I have provided you a link to download the 4_chariot.blend file. So right now here I will come into Blender and I am now going to open the 4_chariot.blend file. Now the very first thing is I want this cursor to be to the center of this origin, and now this time I am going to show you another keyboard shortcut. The keyboard shortcut that we will be using will be Shift plus S, and when you click on this you get this menu. You have selection to cursor, selection to active, selection to grid, cursor to active, cursor to selected, cursor to word origin, cursor to grid, and selection to cursor. You have all this option, and in this I am now going to choose this option cursor to world origin, and when I click on this, now immediately you can see the cursor has shifted to the origin point. So now the next thing is here I am going to now add a new primitive, and this time the primitive that I am going to add is I will press Shift A, I will come into the mesh and I am going to add a cone. Now I will press 1, see the cone is exactly at the center, its depth is 2 meter, and along the Z axis I will move it by 1 meter so that it is at this level, and after moving it, the next thing is the number of vertices instead of 32 I will set it to 4 so that this becomes a square object. I will middle mouse click and rotate and show it to you. This is a square object. Now after this, along the Z axis I am going to rotate it by 45 degree. Then I am going to set its radius 1 to around 1.5 meters. Then I will select the radius 2 and I am going to set it to 2.5 meters. So I got a structure like this. Now only thing is now these two wheels that you are seeing, I have to move it a little inside. Now I will press 1 and you can see I will select first the front axle and I am going to press G to move it. I am going to move it along the X and I am going to move it to the right. So I have to press a 0.8. Press enter. Then I will come over here and I will select the back axle, and this I am going to again press G on the keyboard, and then I will press X because I have to move it along the X axis, and this time I will type minus 0.8 and I will press enter. So now the two wheels are below this base, and now I am going to select this cone that I created. Now I am going to come into the outliner and I am going to name this as base. I am going to open it, and the geometry data I am going to call this as mesh underscore base. I am going to select this base, press 1, and with shift middle mouse I will move it down like this. Then I am going to press Alt plus D to duplicate it. Then I will press Z and I am going to type 5 to move it by 5 units and press enter. If you come into the object menu here, inside the object menu there is an option called mirror, and if I click on this mirror option, and you have different axes here, global and local. I will select X global, and X is not the orbit through which I have to reverse it. I have to reverse it along the Z axis. So when I reverse it along the Z axis, see here you have this reversed. And now I will come over here and I am now going to name this as top. I have my cursor here. I want to move my cursor to this point. That is, I have to move it on the top of this base. Now if I select the base and if I press N and if I see in the item view, See, this base has a height of 2 meters. So now I am going to open view here and I am going to move this cursor along the z axis by 2 meters. So now my cursor is placed exactly at the center of this base top. Now I am again going to now press Shift A and I am going to now add a cylinder, and this cylinder I am now going to set its number of size to 5, and then I am going to set its radius to around 0.2. See, its depth is 2 meters. So I will move it along the z axis by another 1 meter. That is, I will make the z axis to 3 meters. I will move it, and actually I will set the height to 3 meters and I will move this by 3.5 meters. Now I am going to call this as cylinder as pillar 1. I will open this and I am going to name this mesh as mesh underscore pillar. Now I am now going to place this. I will press 7 and come into the top view, and I will come into the wireframe view. I will press G and I am going to move it over here in the top view, and then I will come into this adjust lost operation menu here, and along the X I am going to move it by 1.5 and along Y I am going to move it by 1.5. Press Alt D and I am going to press Y, and along the Y axis I am now going to move it by, I have to move it down, type -3 and move it down. I will press enter and I am going to name this as now pillar 2. Now I will select both pillar 1 and pillar 2. I will press Alt D and I will press X, and I am going to move it along the X. Since I have to move it to the left, I will type -3 and press enter. So now I have the 4 pillars ready. So now I will come to the solid state view. Now you can see we have created these 4 pillars on the 4 sides. I want to place a small flag at the top. So now I will come in, press 1 and come into the front view. Now I will select first, I will again press Shift S and I am going to align my cursor to the selected. So the cursor has come to this selected point, but I want the cursor to be at the top. So to move it to the top, I will come to view again, and in the cursor you can see it is already 6 meters. I will set it to 7 and now the cursor is exactly on the top here. Now I will again press Shift A and I am going to add a cylinder, and this cylinder I am going to set its radius to around 0.05, and then I am going to set its length to around 2 meters, and I will move it along Z by another 1 meter. It is already 7 meter. I will press 8 so that it is sitting on the top like this. I will press 1 and come into the front view. Cylinder selected. I will come into the outliner, and here I have forgotten to name the pillars. So I will name this as pillar 3 and the other one here as pillar 4, and I am going to name this cylinder as flagpole. And then in this flagpole, now again I will press Shift S and enable this cursor to selected, and when I click on cursor to selected, you can now see the cursor is at the center of my flagpole. So now here I am now going to press Shift A, and in mesh I am now going to add a circle. Now adding the circle along the x-axis, I will rotate it by 90 degree. Then I am going to set its radius to around 0.3, or I will even make it 0.4. Now only thing is, instead of 32 vertices, I am going to make this 3 vertices. And after making it 3 vertices, now along the y-axis also I will rotate it by 90 degree, or I will rotate it by minus 90 degree. I am now going to move it along the x-axis like this by around minus 0.25, and then along the z-axis I will move it to the top like this to around approximately 8.67, and I will make this x minus 0.2. And only thing is, I want this to be filled. So I will come into the fill type and I am going to select N-gon, and I am going to call this with the name flag. Then I will press 1 and come into the front view. I will select this object, that is the base object. Now again I will press Shift plus S and choose cursor to select it. Now the cursor is to the center of this base. Now I am going to move it to the top again. So for that, again here I will come and in the view I will set the cursor and move it to 2 meters so that it is exactly at the center here. And at this center point, now I am going to press Shift A, and in the mesh I am going to add a cube, and I am going to set this cube radius to around 1 meter, and I am going to move it along the Z by 2.5 so that it is sitting exactly over the top like this. And after setting this, I am going to call this base top, and I will open this, and here in the cube I am going to call this as mesh base top. Now the same thing I have to do it even for the flagpole. So in this case I will open flagpole and I will call this mesh material as mesh flagpole, and similarly I will also open this flag and I am going to call this as mesh underscore flag. And next I am now going to add monkey here. Press Shift A, and in mesh I am going to add the Suzanne monkey, and now I am going to set its size to around 1.5, and I will move it along the Z axis by 3.5 units so that it is exactly to the top. I will press 1 and come here. Now I have to rotate it along the Z axis by minus 90 degree so that it is seen on the front. But I will press G, Z and slightly move it to the top so that it is resting exactly over this base top. So now we have successfully created the structure on the back of the chariot. Now I want to create a pattern. I will press 1. Now again I am going to press Shift plus A and I am going to add a cube, and this time I am going to set the size of this cube to around 0.3. I will make it a very small cube, and along the Z axis I am going to move it by 2.15. It is exactly above. Now I will press G, Y and I will move it by 1 unit and press enter. Then I will press Alt D to duplicate it, and then along the Y axis I will move it by minus 0.3. Then I will press Shift R and I will repeat it 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 6 copies over here. So you can see cube to cube 5. I have these copies. I will select all and I will press G, Y and move it to the left like this. and I will move it by around minus 0.25 so that it is exactly at the center. Now I will again press Alt D and along the Z axis I will move it by 0.3 units and press enter. Now press Shift R to repeat it 3, 4, 5 and 6. So I have created 6 into 6, 36 cubes over here. So if I click middle click and if I turn and show it to you, so you have 36 cubes. I will select this cube, roll down and with shift press select the 36 clip, and along the GX I am going to move it by 1.5 units so that it is exactly at the back. Now here I want to show you in object one of the transformations feature which we call it as to sphere. So when I click on to sphere and now if I just move it, see as I move the mouse, see the entire structure moves into the shape of a sphere. So you can control this, you can mirror the editing, you can do proportional editing, and you have everything adjusted here. I will switch off proportional and I have set it to 1, and then I will turn over here, and another feature we have here is object transform push pull. And now see you can push and pull this entire block together or far away. So I can move it like this. So I will just move it a little, like around minus 0.5 I will move it. Then I will press GZ and move it to the top. I will press 3 and come to the side. I will just see that it is exactly at the center like this. Our next job is to parent all these things so that we can animate it. So for that purpose, I will select this flagpole and the flag. Then in object, I am going to go over here and click join. And now you can see that both these have been merged into one single object. So this has become one single object. Like this, you can merge multiple objects into one by using object join. Now next, I am going to select this flag and with shift pressed click on this top. The top is the active object with yellow orange tint. Press Ctrl P and parent it. So now you can see this flag went inside this top. Now next, I want all the cubes present here to be parented to one cube over here. I will select this. See, this is the actual active cube. I will press Ctrl P and click on object transform, and now you can see this one cube will control all these things together. Now I am next going to select this cube and then click on this base, and see that base is the active object now, and if I now press Ctrl P, I am going to click on object transform. So it gets transformed, and similarly now I am now going to select 1, 2, 3 and 4 pillars. Then I will select this base top and the Suzanne, and finally I am going to select this base. So that I select all these items, press Ctrl P, and I am going to set it parent to this base. And finally I will select the top also, and I will select the base. See that this is the active object. Then press Ctrl P and I am going to parent it. So now I have only one object base to which all the objects are parented. And why I did this is, now I want to animate and create a small movie of this chariot moving. Before I do this, I am in the solid state mode. I will come over here and I will enable random so that every object has different materials here. Then I will also come over here and enable cavity so that you have sharper edges. Now making these changes, now I am next going to create the animation. So to create the animation, now I am going to come over here and set my animation range from 1 to 60 and I will move to frame number 1. I will select this base and then I will come into item, and here I can add a keyframe to it to start the animation by going into object, animation, insert keyframe. Instead of inserting it here, I will bring the mouse over the location here, and if I press I on my keyboard, now you can see a keyframe is added to this base at frame number 1. Then I will move to frame number 60, and then with this selected I will press G and X and I will move it along X by around minus 12 units, and then I will again click on this. I will bring the mouse over this and I will press I. So another keyframe is added. Now if I press shift space bar and play it, so you can see the chariot is moving. But the only issue is, as the chariot is moving, I want these wheels to be animated. The wheels are not right now rotating. So I will again press shift space bar, then shift and left arrow to move to the first frame. Then inside the base, I am now going to first select the front axle, and at frame number 1, now in rotation I am going to add the keyframe. Then I will come to frame 60 and I will just move over here, and you can see if I negate the value of y, it is going to rotate forward. So along y, I am going to rotate it by around minus 350 degree, and then I will press I. So now you can see the front wheel is rotating. Now similar to that, I will also select the back axle now. I will press shift and left arrow, come to frame number 1, and for this back axle in rotation, I will bring the mouse here and press I to add a keyframe. Then I will move to frame 60, and at frame 60 now, I will again set the y value to minus 350 and I will again press I. And now if you play it, see now the chariot is also moving and the wheels are also rotating. Now next I will press N and close the side panel, and I am now going to set a right view like this. So I want this chariot to move in this view. I will set the view like this, and then I will come over here, close this base, and I will select the camera, come into view and align view, and I am going to choose align active camera to view. So now in the active view you can see this, and when it is moving forward, I want to slightly zoom it out. So I will open this panel here and I will come into view and enable this camera to view. I will also add an animation to camera also now. I will come to frame number 1 and in item for the camera. So now the chariot is at this position initially. I will come to item, and for camera I am now going to add a keyframe. Then at frame number 60, now I will again come to view. See, this camera to view is on. I will slightly zoom it out with shift and middle mouse, I will pan it down like this. I will set the position here. This will be the final position, and then I will come to view, item, and here I will press I and add a keyframe. So now the camera is also animated. So with these animations done, now finally I will go into file, save as, and I am going to save this as 5_chariot animation, and I am going to save this file. Then finally, to see this animation and to render it as a video, I will come into the output here. The size is set to 1920 into 1080, and in the output I will click here, and in my folder I am going to give this the name as chariot animation, and I am going to click accept. Then here in the file format, I am going to select this FFmpeg video. Let the color space be RGB only, and with this setting done, now with this view open, I will press N and close the side tab, or I will press Ctrl space bar and make it full screen. Then I will come to view camera, frame camera bounce, and now I will come into view and I am going to choose viewport render animation, and when I click on viewport render animation, you can see this animation is now rendered, and once it is rendered, I will press Ctrl space bar and come back to the original position. I will save this. Our Blender job is over. Now I will come into my folder, and here you have this chariot animation 001 to 60.mkb file. I will right click this and I am going to play it in the media player, and now here you can see the animation is running. And in our next session we are going to go through the other types of objects that we can add in Blender.